Set. Places, everybody. And action.
It's time once again for the Hooked on Movies podcast. Celebrating 50 years of SNL, we are going to look at last year's salute to the first season of Saturday Night Live, the movie Saturday Night. With me are Ken.
If that piglet disfigures my work, I'm going to turn her uterus into a sock puppet.
And Ted.
I'd rather butt-fuck cancer than make these changes.
And I'm going to ask the ultimate question, what is a zipper dinner? You have an idea, as do we, and I know
I was going
we're
to say
just
it's a PG show, but I just talked about a uterus, so I don't know.
And yeah, and Ted went a different direction. So, of course, we are talking about SNL coming off the heels of Saturday Night Live's big extravaganza weekend of music and their anniversary celebrating their music and their skits and just everything. And I know you guys watched it and enjoyed it immensely.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, I did. So. It was amazing.
What else have you guys been watching since we have last talked? We'll start off with you, Ted.
I wrapped up The Sopranos.
They all die at the end, or maybe they don't. I don't know.
Yeah,
you never know.
It all goes to
Fades
black.
to black, right?
One of the great all-time endings to a TV show. I remember the first time watching it, I thought something happened to my TV like everybody else in America.
Yep.
Not everybody liked that ending, though. There were a lot of people that were very upset.
No, they're very upset because they got the wool pulled over their eyes thinking that something happened to their TV. Yeah, no, a lot of people didn't. But I think it's one of the great endings. And
better than Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
that was a train wreck.
Everything is better than the finale.
Train wreck.
Seinfeld.
Train wreck.
It was so horrible.
Very disappointing.
The most disappointing series finale ever, in my opinion.
Seinfeld?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the most disappointing, but it was
for me
definitely up there.
For me, it was because I was so looking forward to it. I loved Seinfeld, but
I did have a Seinfeld party for that last episode. I had a bunch of people over to the apartment.
Sorry.
I remember it. Can't all be gems.
No.
So what else you watched besides The Sopranos?
I watched, speaking of James Gandolfini, I watched for the first time a movie, his final movie. It was called Enough Said.
I own it. It's a great movie.
With him and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That probably made you cry at the end, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little tearjerker. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
It made me cry at the end more or less because I miss James Gandolfini.
How did you pick that one out?
It's been something that I've been wanting to watch for quite a while.
Okay.
And so I popped it in. I was like, okay, I need to do this. I finished The Sopranos and then after finishing The Sopranos, I watched The Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos movie.
Yeah.
Which is okay. It is okay. I mean, it's not the
prequel kind of. It's a
prequel. But there are elements of it that I really, really like. But but I really liked Enough Said, and
I did too.
James Gandolfini is definitely missed. Was a great actor.
Yes, he was. That he was. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much about it. What about you, Kenny?
I watched, as we said earlier, a lot of the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary show. I've also finished season 2 of Evil. I have 2 more episodes to go to finish up Cobra Kai, but so far, I'd say it's much better than the previous episodes.
I watched the final 5 episodes of Cobra Kai.
And how quickly you forgot. It must have been that memorable.
It was really good. I thought it was really good. I liked it.
Yeah. I haven't watched the last 2, but I can say I felt like they started the show really strongly on Johnny and they lost its way. And I think towards the end here, they're recapturing what they had before.
Yes.
Hoping that the last 2 episodes.
I won't ruin anything for the last 2, but you're on the right path.
Outside of that, just been watching a lot of documentaries on Saturday Night Live. Been watching a lot of Vegas videos because I'm longing for Vegas again. I need to go back.
On Instagram, I know the Saturday Night Live Instagram, they did 50 days of 50 funniest sketches, and I've been watching those as everything goes through, and they were counting down. And it's really fun to watch your favorite sketches from the past.
How about you, Eric?
Not much. Went to the RV show this weekend. Did not buy an RV.
Where'd you get the Tenement on Wheels, Eric?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That there, Clark, is an RV.
Tenement wheels running about 100 G's now.
Don't you be getting attached to that. It's gonna go with us when we leave here next month.
Eric's doing a Lost in America thing.
Yeah, I felt like it.
Okay. No, hey, I'm along for the ride. I'll ride along with you.
And other than that, not too much. Haven't watched any additional Sopranos, so I'm obviously way behind you since you're done.
And you started 4 or 5 months before Ted did. So
well, some of us have time and some of us don't have time apparently.
Exactly.
And I watched maybe one more episode of Yellowstone.
Hello.
Yeah, so I'm still inching my way through that. And when that's all done, me and the wife have agreed we are going to watch Boston Legal from the start.
One of Ken's favorites.
Yeah, we're gonna watch the whole series. Kind of like we binged it. Yeah, we binged Friends a couple years ago. We'd watch like an episode, 30-minute episode a night.
Yeah,
I'll come over. I'll watch Boston Legal with you guys.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that
because that's what you guys want.
That. Of course, yes.
Michelle and I
snuggle up with us on the couch again. So, yeah.
Eric, what's that in your pocket?
Yeah, right.
Michelle and I did the Friends thing. That was cool.
Which is
a few years ago.
Because before I met Jennifer, I had never watched Friends.
Really?
I never watched
the first one.
Nope, never watched.
Oh, wow.
One episode. So since then I've caught like a few episodes here and there, but I had no idea about, the relationships and how things worked. So we just binged it and, one episode every day for a couple months. And yes, I loved it.
You might not remember, but what was your favorite episode?
Where Joey dresses up with Chandler. He's got all his clothes on. Shirts and ties, like, could I be anymore?
Mine too.
It's like, could I be anymore? Yes.
Lunge.
Yes.
Lunge.
Yes. I love that episode.
That's mine too. It's mine too.
And I love it when he plays Dr. Drake Ramore.
Yes. Of course, yes.
Yes, it is a wonderfully written show.
When you mentioned that, I like the episode of when he plays the doctor and the one fan thinks it's a real person.
Yes. Oh, it's Brooke Shields.
But
it's
Brooke Shields, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, saying that he has a twin brother and
right, yes.
And Matthew Perry's like
the evil doctor.
Yeah. There was water into his face. Everybody's throwing water in his face. Yeah.
It's like, yes, it is. Yeah, I love that episode too. Because they're getting away with it. He can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It was like Derek Ramore or some weird, yeah.
The other one I would like a lot is the one where Rachel accidentally has the pages of her dessert stuck together, so she has all these layers, and it's a nice dessert, but then you get to one level, it's like
meat. That's one of the Thanksgiving episodes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Is
Joey's eating it up. He's like,
I love those. Yeah.
I love it. This is naming all the ingredients. Good. Yeah, it's
like, what is this, bologna? Yeah, or something. Yeah.
Is that the one where Courtney Cox comes in with the turkey on her head too, and she's dancing with?
Oh, that's a great one too. Yes.
Yeah.
She gets stuck on her head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. We could sit here and talk about that forever.
Yes.
It's a fun show. It really is. It is fun.
That has a tie-in to Saturday Night Live as well.
Wonderful.
Because NBC thought that Lorne Michaels was getting too big for his britches, and they said, well, we can make our own sketch comedy, and that'll be just as successful, if not more successful, than Saturday Night Live. And then that's how Friends came about.
So one of my little Friends memories before I watched Friends was I was a big Murphy Brown fan, and
another good show.
I can't think of his name now.
Candace was on the fifth
as she should be, because she was on that show very much so.
The third host?
Yeah.
Third or fourth?
Actually, she has, I think, the third or fourth most
hosting.
She's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, her and
I know
like Buck Henry.
She's in the five.
She's in the Five Club, but she's
Five
never
Club.
mentioned.
What? Yes, she is. She's a 5-timer. She's
Yeah, but when they do their little sketch, when they induct somebody into the,
she's been there.
she has.
Oh
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And
I've
they
seen her.
inducted, what's his name? Jason Mulvaney or whatever his name.
Mulaney. John Mulaney.
Oh, John
John
Mulaney.
Mulaney.
Okay.
Yes.
She was there.
She was there. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an episode where oh my god, I can't think of the guy's name now. Yeah, Penny Marshall's dad.
Yeah, I know who you're
Gary
talking
Marshall.
about.
Gary Marshall.
Yeah.
Gary Marshall is the head of the network.
Right.
And he's always got this thing, where people are touching his board and he gets upset. And he's like, things fall and he goes, that's not bad. That's not bad. Well, there's this one where he's talking about, we can't be friends. What are we going to do? Have a knockoff called Pals? Amigos? So
yes.
I'm always using that line when we talk about
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah,
Pals?
that's
Amigos?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
So that's my lineage to Friends before I watched it. And on that note, anything else you guys have watched, or is that about it?
That's about it.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We greatly appreciate it. It's like a telethon. Won't you please help?
Donate money.
Donate money now. But of course,
Eric has muscular dystrophy. He
Eric's
needs
got
money.
It's the Eric Palm Fund for a better tomorrow, namely
Exactly.
mine. So, won't you help? Where are we? We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We're on X. We are on the Dorkening Network. And we are on YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
Yes, everyone loves us on YouTube. So that's very exciting. So let's talk about the first time we watched this movie, which had to be pretty recently because it hasn't been out very long. You, Ted? What do you got?
I was the first one of the three of us to see it.
You're the trendsetter. Yes.
Yes.
Did you see it in the theater?
No.
Okay.
No, good God, no. And by what I'm going to tell you in the particulars, nobody saw this in the theater.
Yes, it did not last very long.
So I saw this probably in November, I think. Yeah, probably
I think it
somewhere
might
around
have still
November.
been in the theater, technically.
Well, technically it might
One
have
and
been,
done,
but
1 week and done.
That's when I saw it. I saw it through a streaming service.
You can say it. It's okay.
Plex. It was on somebody's Plex. It was on a friend's Plex server. So
you're a
watched it.
pirate. Arg. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, and then I told Kenny about it, and because as much as this movie is I think is kind of funny, Saturday Night Live has always been a huge part of my life, and you guys have probably talked about what you think is your funniest thing, but I'll never forget the van down by the river with Chris Farley. That's my favorite sketch of all time.
Okay.
When I mean, because that was right as high school, it was perfect, and I miss Chris Farley.
We know. How about you, Ken? What's your favorite SNL skit bit? What do you got? Anything?
Well, first, I'll tell you, I watched this like a couple days ago.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And as far as skits go, I mean, I have so many of them. Early career, Saturday Night Live, I'm thinking the Bass-O-Matic with Dan Aykroyd. For some reason, that
Super
always
Bass-O-Matic.
Yeah, it always pops into my head.
Wow, that's great bass.
That's great bass.
It's a bag of glass. It's a bag of glass.
What, Wainwright or something Industries? Yeah,
right,
all the kids' toys.
It's a bag of glass.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, I watched reruns when I was a teenager. But what really got me into Saturday Night Live was the late '80s cast with like Dana Carvey.
Sure.
Exactly. Well, Church Lady was a big thing, and then of course
Is George Bush.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Not gonna do it.
Not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Broccoli bad. Yeah.
So when I think of Saturday Night Live, I think of pretty much Dana Carvey. To be honest with you,
no,
so that's my guy.
You know what? I just thought, as we're talking, I just thought of one of my favorite bits. Phil Hartman doing the Sinatra group.
Yes.
Lighten up, cue ball. You're platinum. I got bigger pieces of you on my stool.
For the record, his Sinatra was so much better than Piscopo's.
Clearly. Oh, clearly. Another funny bit that I love that I've just recently watched, like within the last couple weeks, is Phil Hartman doing his Phil Donahue. He does a spot on Phil Donahue.
It's perfect.
It is.
So we were talking, me and Ted were talking earlier today, and we were talking about the people that we've lost on Saturday Night Live. And of course, Chris Farley and Norm Macdonald are the ones that are like focused on this. with the cast. They're more recent than, but Phil Hartman for me was kind of like, that one was the one that hurt the most. John Belushi.
Because he was taken
shocking.
too soon as a
shot.
It
was
killed by his wife. Yeah.
It was shocking. Right. It was so
because
shocking.
For me, Phil Hartman, was the as Adam Sandler says in his song that he did on the 50th special, he's the glue.
Yes, I've heard that.
And I had talked about Dan Aykroyd's a bit. Actually, I feel like Dan Aykroyd is the original Phil Hartman. Can play any role. You could place him into any situation, and I almost feel like Dan Aykroyd to a certain extent is underrated. You think of Belushi and you think of Chase, and then of course Bill Murray, but Dan Aykroyd.
Bill Murray wasn't part of the original cast.
No, but then I said then after that it's Bill Murray after he replaced him. So
the original cast is Belushi, Chase, and Gilda Radner. That's probably how that goes, as far as your top three. And then Aykroyd's definitely right there. But Aykroyd was also a writer too, so he's a unique.
Well, so was Chase. Chevy Chase was also a writer on the show as well.
Depends on who you talk to. How much he wasn't even
signed up to be on the show originally. No, he was the last person on the payroll to become on-air talent. I guess it depends on who you talk to, but
many different stories.
That's Lorne Michaels' take on it.
That's Lorne Michaels' take because, well,
go ahead.
We'll talk about it when we talk about the movie, but Chevy was not liked by a lot of people. But he's mended fences. Unfortunately, he was not able to mend fences with one person in particular who passed away.
And we'll talk about that because the movie kind of points out that
it does.
But the movie also points out that Belushi didn't get along with pretty much anybody.
There's a lot of liberties that this movie has taken. I think we can agree.
A lot of liberties.
But that's okay.
If you hear people talk about him, well, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it, yes.
Yeah. Belushi's the other person that is like my guy. Because I was a chubby kid, and so I identified with Chris Farley, I identified with John Belushi. Yeah, those were my guys, but like you said, Phil Hartman, Eric, you said Phil Donahue. The Phil Hartman thing that always sticks out, there's two of them that stick out for me, and that's Frankenstein.
Yes, a caveman attorney.
Caveman attorney.
Your ways frighten me. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
I was thinking about Dana Carvey. One thing I didn't mention was what really got me to Dana Carvey initially was the broccoli.
Chopping broccoli with Sigourney Weaver.
Chopping broccoli.
And Phil Hartman.
And Phil Hartman. The other was like, so great. We love it. Chopping broccoli. It is a great skit. You're right.
So Ted, why don't you get us into the particulars so we can get on with this thing?
The particulars. So, the not ready for Saturday night, not ready for primetime players. So, Saturday Night, the movie, is directed by Jason Reitman, with a screenplay by Gil Keenan and Jason Reitman. It was musically scored by John Baptiste, who I believe played the national anthem at the Super Bowl.
You are correct, sir. Yes.
Yes. You are correct, sir.
It's Carvey's Johnny Carson.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has a running time of... That's so funny.
Yes.
Carson and Phil Hartman playing...
Ed McMahon. You can tie so much to SNL.
God, my whole childhood was Saturday Night Live.
All I have to say is, get a life, you people.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
That's the Shatner episode.
It has a running time of 109 minutes. It was released September 27th, 2024. So this is our most recent
clearly our most recent movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Axel Foley.
Which one?
Axel Foley?
That's right. We did do Axel Foley. That is correct. So I was not correct, sir. So it had a budget of $30 million, but it only box office grossed $9.8 million. That doesn't take into account what it's going to make off of streaming, because our box office grosses, if we get into the more newer movies, is going to be really, really stunted as far as comparison
skewed.
to budget.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you got the 50th anniversary. People are going to probably check it out now.
I think you're right.
For sure, for sure. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a critic score of a certified fresh 78%, so very positive. And it has an audience score of a positive 84. IMDb, here again, lags behind with a 7.0. And get ready for the cast. And you're going to say, and Lord Cleaver as Beaver Cleaver. At the
Jerry
end.
Mathers as
Jerry
the Beaver.
Mathers, yeah, whatever.
And Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
As the Beaver, yeah.
Yes.
So, all right, so buckle up, boys.
All right, buckled up.
Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels, Rachel Sennett as Rosie Schuster, Carrie Michael Smith as Chevy Chase, Ella Hunt as Gilda Radner, Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd, Emily Farron as Lorraine Newman, Matt Wood as the great John Belushi, Lamorne Morris as Garrett Morris, Kim Matula as Jane Curtin, Finn Wolford as an NBC page.
Is that the one who gets high and locks himself in the room?
No, I think, isn't that the guy at the...
who's handing out the free tickets?
Because he's from Stranger Things.
You say so.
The end of the Netflix show.
Most importantly, he's from the Ghostbuster reboot, which Reitman directs.
Makes sense now.
True. Nicholas Braun has a dual role. He plays Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson, and you would recognize him from the HBO show Succession. Ellen Boskov as Mrs. Kaufman, Cooper Hoffman as Dick Ebersol, Andrew Barth Feldman as Neil Levy, Leander Suleiman as Annie Beats, Taylor Gray as Al Franken, McCabe Gregg as Tommy Davis, Tommy Davis,
yeah.
Tommy Davis. Abraham Hsu as Leo Hashimura, Corinne Britty as Valerie Bloomfield, Nicholas Podney as Billy Crystal, Rowan Joseph as Jim Fox, Christy Woodward as Audrey Pert Dickman, Kea Gerber as Jacqueline Carlin, Robert Wool as Dave Wilson, Drew Scheid as Bob Pook, Tommy Dewey as Michael O'Donoghue, Catherine Curtin as Joan Carbuncle, Jean-Baptiste as Billy Preston, Brian Welch as The Voice, Don Pardo, Jeff Holbrook as the editor, Willem Dafoe as David Tebbutt, Paul Rust as Paul Schaefer. He's great in this. Tracy Letts as Herb Sargent, Matthew Reese as George Carlin, Naomi McPherson as Janice Ian, and J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle, Billy Brick as Carl, Brad Garrett as a Borscht Belt comedian.
Yeah, really.
Josh Brenner as Alan Zweibel, Jeff Witzke as the voice of Johnny Carson, and David Michael Brown is uncredited as Bernie Brillstein.
Boy, that Carson call, we'll talk about that.
And we will definitely talk about that.
Yeah. That's a cast of a lot of people you don't know.
A lot of unknowns, a few people that you do know and can recognize from different things. Good cast, though.
Yeah.
Everybody really encapsulates their character, I think.
Well, I'm looking forward to Ken's Tidbits now. Boy, what a setup there. Ken's Tidbits. Do.
Not much as far as tidbits, just because it's a newer movie and there's not a lot out there. But I will tell you that principal photography began in March of 2024. This movie, was
came
just
together
made,
really quick.
Shot
really
as fast
right?
as the real SNL. Yeah,
exactly.
It's made mostly in Atlanta and Fayetteville, Georgia, marking under the title Wolverines, as a reference to the first sketch ever performed on Saturday Night Live.
Your fingertips.
Scenes that were shot outside Rockefeller Plaza were done on the weekend of March 9th and March 10th, and filming had concluded in May of 2024. Quick turnaround on the filming. Yeah, and it was released pretty quickly, too. So that's kind of interesting. Saying.
Massive, really quick turnaround. I did hear that they rebuilt the Saturday Night Live set.
I would figure they would have to, considering...
SNL's not going to let them use it.
No, good not.
Benny Safdie, the guy who played Andy Kaufman, He was originally supposed to play Andy Kaufman, but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Because of this, Nicholas Braun, who plays two roles, he plays Kaufman and Jim Henson.
Yeah. I like him as an actor. He was really good in the show Succession.
It's on my list of ones to watch.
So J.K. Simmons was given a prosthetic penis to wear for the role of Milton Berle.
Really?
During one take, the silicone prop fell out of his pants.
That's so awesome.
And slapped against the floor, inciting laughter from the crew.
That would have been a great outtake.
Everybody's pretty much except for like somebody who's in the porn industry is going to have a prosthetic for Milton Berle.
I would probably wet myself if I could find that outtake for
that's
that.
Awesome. That's an awesome outtake.
J.K. Simmons, if that's out there.
So a couple of reviews by the people that were there. Chevy Chase told director Jason Reitman that he should be embarrassed by this film.
Not surprising.
Really? That's on brand.
And Aykroyd wrote that the movie was propulsive, engaging, funny, beautiful cast, acted suspenseful, adventurous, music-filled ride, a perfect window into the creative process at its highest level, and pretty accurate too, is what Dan Aykroyd wrote.
So you got two varying opinions.
So Chevy might have made up with a lot of people, but he hasn't made up with Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd is actually one of his closest friends.
Really?
Ha ha.
Aykroyd will tell you that. He's him and Chevy are really close, and that's why they did Spies Like Us in 1985. He wrote the part for Chase.
And weren't they also in Nothing But Trouble together in 87?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was later. I think it was like 89 or 90, actually.
So, are we sure that he wasn't punishing Chevy Chase for writing the Spies Like Us?
I love Spies Like Us.
Bill Murray punched him in the face.
Well,
but now I guess they're friends.
I'm sure he's not the first person to do that.
Rumor has it the reason why that happened was John Belushi kind of was talking to Bill Murray and planting the seeds for that fight.
Chevy made fun of Gilda Radner.
Yes.
Is why that happened. And Murray was probably dating Gilda Radner at the time. And they were at least like best friends. And
I was gonna say, were they just all screwing each other at one point?
Yes.
Of course they all
Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
That's why Bill Murray punched Chevy Chase in the mouth.
But I don't think it's all because of Gilda. Even Bill Murray and Chevy Chase have gone on record to say that John kind of pushed the buttons to have that happen.
We'll talk
so there's
about
only
John and Chevy.
Only one. Belushi's the only. Well, Gilda Radner. Those are the only two cast members who are really dead from the original season, aren't they?
They're not fully dead,
I don't mean career dead. Really I mean walking, yes.
Yeah, they're the only two that have passed away.
Yeah, which is very surprising if you think about the amount of drugs and the age of just a show. I mean, you'd expect more of them.
Well, and as far as writers go, Michael O'Donoghue has passed away.
Well, yes. And Phil and Kaufman is dead, obviously.
Why, yeah.
Yes.
Well,
so
is he?
Okay, stop it. He is. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's dead. Okay.
All right. Here I come to save the day.
And we'll have to talk about during that. So why don't we go right into the steps so we can start talking about this movie?
Let's do it, and let's give a little PSA on this one, kids. This movie is not verbatim fact of the opening night of Saturday Night Live. We would say that maybe a good 50% of it is some liberties have been taken. So please don't take this movie as a documentary. It's not a documentary.
No,
if you've just watched the 50th anniversary and you're like, boy, this movie looks good, let's look at it. It's not a documentary. So take it with a grain of salt as just a movie. So let's go in.
It's two men.
Dan Aykroyd would say that it's pretty accurate.
Well, okay, yes.
It's two men's imagining what life was like on the first night.
Yes. So let's talk about it. It's a setup. On October 11th, 1975, novice producer Lorne Michaels arrives at NBC Studios in New York City to prepare for the airing of the first episode of NBC Saturday Night. The evening is plagued with incidents and a hostile cast and crew. Michael's boss, Dick Ebersol, warns him that David Tebbutt has brought executives from across the country to come and view the broadcast. Despite Tebbutt giving encouraging words to Michaels, Ebersol makes it known that Tebbutt has no faith in the show and is ready to replay a taping of an episode of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson to fill in the slot.
I gotta think that's pretty much 100% probably true.
It's completely true.
Yeah.
The NBC wanted no part of this. Johnny Carson was making royalties off of the reruns of The Tonight Show,
of course,
on Saturday night, and they were trying to negotiate that out of his contract. It was a power play by NBC, but they had no faith that this was gonna take. They're like, we'll just put something together and we'll put something out there. They didn't want this to take off. Who wanted a bunch of 20-year-olds on TV?
Well, it's not
Especially
just the 20-year-olds, it's the cost of the show. For a Saturday night late program at 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern Time, this is where reruns should go.
Yeah, no one's watching TV at this hour.
At least that's what they thought.
Exactly.
Back then, of course, we didn't have social media. We didn't have TikTok.
No.
You know, you couldn't see the skits the next day and go, I'm going to check out the show. This is word of mouth.
Yeah, total word of mouth. Yeah.
Gets this going. I think it's interesting that the movie starts off with the interviews that the cast do, and these are real interviews that are done. So you can go on YouTube and
they're screen tests.
There actually was for a magazine, from what I remember. I don't remember what the name of the magazine was, but they were doing these interviews with them, and they did record it. But we get to see just the inner workings of what puts a show together. And this is a makeshift type of deal because this area of Rockefeller Plaza there was for radio. It wasn't built for a TV show. So not only did they not want to succeed, they put them in almost kind of like in the closet to make
pretty
this
much
work.
Yeah.
The worst possible scenario.
I mean, bad lighting, bad music. I mean, it's funny because this is for radio, but they're not set up for the
sound.
Bands,
right.
For sound and things like that.
Band, yeah.
I think it was some big band music that used to play it all the time here
in the 40s and 50s. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because NBC was a radio station.
They all were radio stations back then.
Was ABC?
Not ABC, but CBS.
I think ABC. I think
RCA,
ABC,
CBS,
NBC. Yeah.
I think it's a good setup, though. You have all these different dynamics, all these different comics. You got Lorne Michaels. He's going up against David Tebbutt. I mean, so David Tebbutt, of course, played by the great William Dafoe. He does a great job. William Dafoe does a great job of always being up like the adversary, the bad guy. And I like how he's like backhanded compliments when he tells Ebersol to shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, "Don't you see that we're in the presence of talent?
Genius,
of genius." But it's a backhanded compliment.
Oh yeah,
of course it is. He doesn't mean it. Anything that you've read about anybody who's spent time doing Saturday Night Live, the chaos that you walk through the halls,
that whole week prep up to Saturday is just
and this movie totally encapsulates a week's worth of chaos into boom right here. I mean, it's chaos. I mean, you have Billy Crystal and Annie Beats trying to do their thing in the hallway, and you have Andy Kaufman coming in.
Apparently, a llama was used.
A llama, a llama.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't find a Wolverine.
Yes,
Wolverine. The person who stands out the most, though, especially in this first section, is Michael O'Donoghue, the head writer.
Yeah, very much sarcastic SOB that he is.
He is fucking hilarious,
especially going with the NBC censor. Yes,
him and Downey are two of my favorite writers in Saturday Night Live history. O'Donoghue was from the National Lampoon, so he wasn't going to take shit from anybody. I mean,
as Belushi wasn't going to take shit from anybody.
Well,
yeah.
Belushi's the only character we really don't get introduced to in this first section. But I like the fact that you have Garrett Morris who's wondering what he's doing there. And It's like, because he was a trained actor, and if there was a quote unquote odd man out, it would have been Garrett Morris.
What are you thinking? Token black guy?
No, I think that Lorne saw his talent, and I think he knew that he could rely on him to
be the adult in the room, kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. God knows Belushi and Aykroyd and Chase weren't going to be the adults in the room. I mean, you kind of get to see Chevy's ego already on display.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Oh sure.
And Belushi's prima donna type of stances as well. At least that's how the film plays it off. I know he can do no wrong in your eyes, Dad.
That's how they play it off.
That's how it is in the film.
But that's how it is on the film, because
and we're talking about the film.
He did not sign his contract up to 30 minutes before.
Yeah, I guess that. Yeah, that's true. I guess
so. There was a possibility that he wasn't going on that night. Can't go on without a contract.
I guess he wouldn't have went on. I don't think that was ever really a possibility by anybody, especially his wife has said that wasn't a possibility.
I would think though that Michaels would have prepared just in case.
He was in the first sketch.
I understand that.
To ever go on.
But they would have just had to bump the sketch. One thing Michaels did to protect himself, and we see this in the film, is he had a lot of skits. Tons of skits, just to make sure. They said that the dress rehearsal ran 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to make sure that he had enough material to be on the safe side. Michaels is prepared for this, and you're probably right. It was probably just a power play on Belushi's point, but Belushi, outside of National Lampoons, he wasn't huge. No, he wasn't a big name. He was a radio guy. So for him to be power playing for more money without it being a big name star yet,
I don't think it had anything to do with money.
That's what I read was that he was holding out for more money. Why was he not wanting to sign the contract?
Well, he hated Chevy Chase. I mean, that's obvious.
Working with him in National Lampoons.
Yeah, they hated each other.
They worked together, though.
They worked together, but
so you're saying they're just waiting for them to fire Chevy Chase before
it came to blows.
Yeah, we see that in the film.
Yeah, they did. Those two men hated each other. Like, Belushi thought Chevy Chase was not funny, and Chevy Chase's ego never let him concede that Belushi was funnier than he was.
Well, they're two different styles, for one thing.
Yes.
So I don't want to say one's funnier than the other, though I would probably lean more that Belushi was, more talented. But, like we talked about the movie Across the Great Divide.
Continental Divide, my bad. Continental Divide is not a good movie by both accounts, so he's not a leading man type of character. Whereas Chevy Chase could probably pull that off a little bit better as a romantic lead. Romantic comedies like
he's more handsome.
He's a better looking guy. But
just
I'm just saying
he'll tell you.
They're just different type of play. They're just two different type of comics. But like I said, I mean, Belushi's more talented, but I don't think to say that Chevy Chase can't hold his own that would be kind of ridiculous to say.
So if Belushi hadn't signed the contract, he knew that he could have come back to Chicago and ran Second City, and he would have been immensely successful running Second City.
Yeah, but this is New York. This is national television.
Right.
Yeah, and he might have burned a bridge there and looked as hard. No, with Saturday Night Live.
Well, with Lorne? Yeah, well, because once you've burned a bridge with Lorne, you're done. By all accounts.
Running, he would have to go migrate to Canada and be part of SCTV because
Second City Television.
I don't see that happening, but yeah.
So he had
they already had John Candy. They wouldn't have needed him.
I mean, Belushi would have had to do this. He has to do Saturday Night Live because this is the stepping stone to go into movies. If he goes back to Second City, yeah, he might run Second City, but he's not going to be the name. The only way he can get around that is if Dan Aykroyd still writes things for Belushi, like the Blues Brothers.
and think about it too. No one is doing live television. That's the one caveat. This is not taped. This is live television. Right. Nobody is doing, almost to this day, very rarely do you see anything other than
Live.
sporting events, live. I mean, when they were doing those live versions of like the Jeffersons and Archie Bunker and stuff, All in the
Mhm.
Family. I mean, those were great.
Oh yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed
Yeah.
those when they did those the reimaginings.
Yes.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson was great as Archie
Yes.
Bunker.
And you could see the ad-libbing. You could see them breaking. You could
Mhm.
see the live. It was live. You knew it was live.
Yes.
There is a feel that people today don't understand. Short of SNL, what else is live anymore?
Robert Downey Jr. has said that it's the most exhilarating 90 minutes
Yeah.
he's ever experienced in his
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler kind of mentions it in his song, the kind of the hype and the excitement, and then the next day the depression sets in, because you build yourself up all week long to do this thing, and then you have nowhere else but to go down.
And that's where a lot of guys had a lot of trouble.
And going back to the movie, I would say one of my favorite parts of the first section of this movie is when Michaels has to meet the affiliates. That big room, that huge room, and he's scared to death of all these people that are there.
Well, they
And
can make or break him.
They could do that. I mean, you have Chevy Chase, who kind of like
Gets
Yeah.
tapped.
Does his one-man show up there?
does this one man show, and
Yeah.
And that's where Tebbit taps him and says that he's going
Yeah.
to be the next Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
right, which they say that probably never would happen, and it's probably good that really
Not according to Chevy.
Well, Chevy did have his own talk show on Fox that lasted about 4 minutes.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah, it's a
Six
joke.
whole weeks. He
Ooh.
did fill in on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
He did. Fill
Everyone
Yeah.
filled in for
And-
like
That's a direct from Chevy that happened, because they didn't know. NBC didn't know if they were going to be able to re-sign Carson.
every 4 or 5 years Carson's contract came up and he
Mhm.
wanted less shows and more money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Donnie, who was also comes up there to he does the Mr.
Michael.
Rogers,
Michael
yeah.
Donahue.
stabbed in the eye type of deal, which I don't
Yeah.
know that for me, I didn't know how funny that was. But
It's absurd
Yes.
affiliates are loving it, and then of course
because
Michaels gets up there and
it
it kind of brings everything back down. But
right.
it's one of my favorite ones because you have to kiss the affiliates' butt. I mean, because they're the ones that are going
In
to
that day and age, yep. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
held the ring, and they held the brass ring. Do we see O'Donohue meet Jim Henson in this first section?
I don't know if they ever meet.
Well, they
Oh, no,
meet.
they meet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they
they
meet that
meet.
one time. Yeah,
They meet in one of the best parts of the whole movie.
it is weird that that Michaels thought that the Muppets would be a good tie-in to this.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
Situation.
who would have thought that one of our favorite people, Albert Brooks, would have been a fit for this as well?
Yeah.
This is just a lot, and obviously George Carlin wasn't a real good fit for this as well. It's a feeling out process.
Sure. You don't know. It's
Right. Lorne Michaels is literally throwing shit at the wall to see what's
And
going
come on,
to stick.
Janice Ian. I mean, kicking it
Exactly,
off. Come on.
Right?
When you're talking about revolutionary comedy and music, Janice Ian.
Would you have picked Billy Preston to be the first musical guest?
Maybe if it was 1968, sure. But
Right.
no.
He
No.
had a decent career in the early 70s.
Hey, Billy Preston is amazing. Yes, if you were to say, okay, we know Saturday Night Live now, okay, and we know what it is. That's not who you want on the first episode. You want the fucking Rolling Stones.
You can't afford the Rolling Stones.
Exactly.
So that's the
Yes.
problem here. So
Right.
But yeah,
Billy
so
Preston is the
they-
right choice here because he probably fits the money situation.
yes, it's awesome. He's for right now, but I'm just saying because Eric brought up Janice Ian. I mean, well, that's who they could afford. I mean, they probably couldn't even afford Joan Baez at that point.
Well, sure.
So-
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, think about it, they didn't even have a band back then. I mean, now
No,
we think of
Paul
Saturday
Schaefer.
Night Live, we think of
yeah.
Saturday Night Live band, but really all it was like you said, Paul Schaefer.
When did Howard Shore come in? Second season?
No, he started it off.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, he started it off, and then
Howard
Paul
Shore,
Schaefer,
the All Nurse Band,
yeah,
Yeah.
and then Paul Schaefer took over. I think the next season.
and then he went to Letterman.
Right. And then, of course, when we were growing up in the 80s, it was
G.E.
can't think
Smith.
of- G.E. Smith, yes.
Yep, G.E. Smith.
Who's
Yep.
an amazing
Yeah.
guitarist.
Yeah. I just love in this early just the chaos
Yes.
and the camera panning and the constant movement and the sarcasm. It is everyone is just like, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck you. I mean, just everyone is just going nuts. There is
Yeah.
no organ. It is pure
Chaos.
and no one, Lorne Michaels, no one knows how this thing is going to turn out. And I don't know how you get everything together.
Right.
It blows my mind.
Jason Reitman does a really great job.
Yeah, I thought he did. I really did.
Of harnessing that chaos. And thank you to Martin Scorsese for doing the tracking shot, for inventing the tracking shot.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin.
So we got that scene where they're rehearsing the break-in, where Dan Aykroyd comes in.
Yeah.
And if
That's
your
a
heart
funny-
was being robbed, this is a simulation type of deal.
That's a funny sketch, too.
And then they have
the lights
lighting.
fall on him. Yeah,
Oh,
crash.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And Belushi goes apeshit.
Well, it didn't happen. You'll see later on, Gilda gets on the camera that wheels around and everything.
Yeah.
I guess that
Camera lift.
that camera lift got into an accident.
Oh.
No, that makes sense.
So they're kind of like playing off of what happened with the camera lift there, but it wasn't as serious as what this was painted out to be. Then you got all these bricks that show up.
Lorne wanted it to look like a street corner in New York.
Right, and you want to use real bricks.
And all the labor
union
guys and
guys,
the union
yeah.
guys like, not my job.
Not my
Yeah.
job. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
that's
do it.
Stereotypical mid-70s New York. That's not
God,
my
yes.
fucking job. You do it. Not my
You do it,
job.
yeah.
Yeah, none of them did anything. They just sat there
Nothing.
and watched everything.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch Nicholas Braun walk around as Andy Kaufman, and he's kind of taking it all in. It's like, does he really fit here?
Do
And
you think
everything.
his mother really dropped Andy Kaufman off?
Yeah, right.
Knowing Andy Kaufman, probably.
Well, he stays in Laka character throughout the whole
Yeah.
proceedings.
I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. Anyone want to guess my secret?
You don't like Andy Kaufman.
I don't like Andy Kaufman.
God.
I'm not the greatest Andy Kaufman
I'm
person.
not. I really wish Jerry Lawler really did break his neck, to be honest
My
with you.
God.
I don't find him funny.
I like him on Taxi.
He's on Taxi. He's an Elvis impersonator. I get it. I just don't think he's funny. I really don't.
I liked him on Taxi, but that's about
it's
it.
Not for
Latka
everybody.
Graves. Yes.
It's not for
And he-
everybody.
But I understand in this movie, I thought he did a phenomenal job as playing Andy Kaufman. Great job, because that's pretty much how. Because I didn't like him on this movie, which is exactly how I like him in real life. I thought he did a great job playing him.
You never
Maybe
watched
not
Man
7
on the
foot
Moon?
tall, but
They did make him pretty tall.
No, he's much taller. Yeah, Nicholas Braun is much taller
Yes.
than him. So you didn't like Man on the Moon?
The movie?
Yeah.
The movie was okay. Yes, I like Jim Carrey. I thought it was good. I like DeVito in it. It's not my.
I saw the documentary about Jim Carrey.
Become.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that I buy, but
Depends on who you talk to.
Isn't that everything out here? It depends on who you talk
Jim,
to. That's like the
by-
answer.
Those who are close to Jim Carrey say that he lost himself in the character.
they also said that he didn't know the character either, because Lawler was like, Andy Kaufman was my friend, and you're not treating me like my friend did.
Yeah.
So, if he lost himself, he lost himself in the wrong character. But anyway, that's another movie for another day.
It's another movie for another podcast.
Why don't we go into the build so we can talk about these
so we can talk
characters in
about
like-
some more of the...
Okay, yeah, because this one
there's some
definitely...
scenes that-
This build actually has a build.
Yeah, because, this middle section, it's hard not to talk about everything, because it's like we
Exactly.
said, it's organized chaos, this movie.
And it's an hour. It's literally an hour. It's an hour. The movie
real
is
time.
It's almost real time. Yeah.
Yeah, it runs
So,
real time.
Garrett Morris, who has experience in operatic theater, questions his relevance among a cast of comedic performers. John Belushi remains alienated from everyone and causes fights. Jim Henson is upset over how his Muppet segment is being treated by the writers. The writers themselves are clashing with censor Joan Carbuncle and her demands. Host George Carlin thinks the whole show is ridiculous, and everyone is trying to figure out what exactly the show is about. Meanwhile, Chevy Chase confronts Milton Berle, who he begins to hit on his girlfriend. Clearly, I think she's hitting on him. Jacqueline
She gets the
hits-
rumors.
Yes, hits on his girlfriend. Jacqueline gets humiliated and is told that he will be amount to nothing. Michaels soon receives a call from Johnny Carson himself, who gives a very unsupportive warning. Despite Michaels warning him not to, Ebersol attempts to sell the idea of performing a sketch with a Polaroid camera for product placement purposes. Belushi is offended and leaves the set with an intention of quitting. As everyone looks for him, assistant Neil Levy is given a joint by Paul Schaefer and has a panic attack, locking himself in a closet. He is eventually enticed out by the cast.
So when we start at the beginning here with Garrett Morris.
Garrett Morris. I'm gonna kill everyone I see.
God, that's so hilarious.
It is, yes.
It's so goddamn funny.
So is
I
it
think-
Lamorne? Is it Lamorne Morris? Is that how you
Lamorne,
pronounce
yeah,
his name?
Lamorne, yeah.
His son?
They're not related.
They're
Not
not,
But he
related.
said that but he said that he used to make fun, and said that Garrett was his dad. But I will
would.
say that he gets Garrett down really well with his mannerisms, how he
Mhm.
talks. I was very impressed
Yeah.
because I know him from the BMO commercials, right?
Yeah.
He's the one that's like always
Yeah. Exactly.
selling us on BMO. But here, he's got some serious good acting chops here.
Yeah, no, he's really good, and I love the interaction with the Billy Preston's band and everything. And
Yeah.
Billy
I
Preston
like how
comes
he-
off being like a dick, though, doesn't he? At first, I mean, it seems
Isn't he a dick, though?
Billy Preston,
He's a little arrogant from what I've read.
probably.
I
Yeah.
wasn't
I
aware
mean,
of
he
that.
did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he was a fifth Beatle for a
Fifth
time.
Beatle. Well,
so-
yeah.
for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But
He's a little arrogant from what I understand, so.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He's
Yeah.
probably right now on set. Before Carlin gets there, he's the biggest star.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, hands down. I mean, it's not even close.
How did they get George Carlin?
Because George Carlin was the number one comedian in the country at the time.
Doesn't mean he'd want to do a show like this.
Somebody pitched it to him that it was going to work.
Live
And-
show and his comedy would play. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is he gonna do?
And,
Hippy Dippy Weatherman? You know?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this over here, man,
Yeah.
it's going to be really, really dark.
I wish they would. That's the one thing I wish they would have done with the movie. Is I know we didn't have time to do it, but I wish they would have done like a reenactment of his monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do it.
The
Yeah.
football,
They didn't do that.
baseball, and that's
Everything.
I watched it.
Yeah.
I watched it before we did this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like the fact that, he's always bitching and complaining. He's like, I don't come through a curtain. I have to come down from, the staircase. He's like,
At this-
fuck you. I
Yeah.
fuck you.
Yeah,
I
right, yeah.
definitely fucked you.
Yeah.
So at this time, he was the stand-up comedian in the country. He had
Yeah.
he had the number one records. He was selling number one records right there, along with our boy from Blazing Saddles,
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
Cleavon
And
Little.
Cleavon
Little Records. Yes.
He's massive.
I love George Carlin. I'm just saying
George
this is
Carlin's-
a very clean. This is not mid-70s George Carlin, is what
No.
I'm saying.
The reason he was probably antagonistic with everybody is because George Carlin was doing a metric fuck ton load of blow.
Coke. Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, he was
And
rivaling Belushi there.
I like it how
Yes.
Donahue and Carlin go at it, though,
Yes.
with each other.
Yeah.
Donahue puts him in his place.
I would have loved to have seen if that really happened. Those are two guys I want to see go head to head because their humor that's my humor.
Do
And-
you agree with Donahue? Did he steal? Was it Lenny Bruce that he?
Yeah,
he
Dead
from?
Man Lenny Bruce.
Didn't everybody? I personally, I think Lenny
I think
Bruce
it's more
is
of a
kind
compliment, though.
It is, because Comedy is like wrestling.
It's
It's
subjective.
like, no, everybody has,
Borrows off of
everything
somebody
has
else.
been done. Everybody steals from everybody. Can you make it your own? It's just like professional wrestling.
Carlin's character actually says, "You're right," but
Yes.
it says it. But he says it in a way
Sarcastically,
that's like, "Of course I am. Of course I do that." Like you said, Ted, because how good would I be without using stuff from the greats, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, comedy as we know it wouldn't exist without Lenny Bruce. Without Lenny Bruce, there is no George Carlin, there is no Richard Pryor, there's no Eddie Murphy, there's no Sam Kinison, there's no Andrew Dice Clay. There's none of these people exist.
Is there a Dane Cook?
Dane Cook is not original. Unfortunately, Mr.
I know.
He stole a lot of his
That's
stuff.
why I brought it up. I know.
But I do like the movie Employee of the Month, though. It's a fun little movie.
Dane Cook and Carlos Mencia are two of the most illustrious in the wrong way comedians.
Yeah.
Let's move on to John Belushi, because we'd already touched on it a little bit. I know Ted's got some opinions on this, because John Belushi is not treated very well
It's
in this
not
movie.
favorable.
Not in this movie. Not favorable. It's almost like
favorable.
Wired. Not favorable
Yes.
at all.
You are exactly right.
Which I have read the book Wired.
Which Wired is nothing more than a hit piece
Oh yeah.
on John Belushi.
So is this a hit piece on John Belushi again?
No,
It's
No,
I think
because-
it's more mild. It's not like a hit. It's like
it's
more
not
of a
that
threat.
bad. Yeah, it is
It's-
not nearly as bad as Wired.
It's not a hatchet job, but it's definitely not
No.
playing him as the most likable guy in the room.
Okay, so it's who do you want to believe? This portrayal of him, he already has the ego, and he's already puffed himself up to be something. Okay, so when he took this job at Saturday Night Live, he was coming out of the National Lampoon Comedy Hour on the radio. He was already immensely successful. He tore it up in Second City in Chicago. He was the biggest star in Second City, but hands down. He was already starting to get overtures from Hollywood. Hollywood is knocking on his door. They are not banging down his door like they end up doing. Would it be okay to say that he probably did have a little bit of an ego? Yes. But if you listen to what Gilda Radner has to say, what Jane Curtin has to say, what Dan Aykroyd has to say, what Lorraine Newman has to say, and what Garrett Morris has to say, they say he's one of the nicest human beings known to man, as long as he wasn't on coke.
Well, that people in Chicago, they loved him. He used to walk around the city all the time. Never had to buy a drink.
No.
Never had to buy a meal. Never had
he
to
was
buy
larger
blow.
than life.
You added that as long as he wasn't doing drugs. Jane Curtin said that she got along with everybody but Belushi. He said Belushi was difficult because of the drug problems. And then I was reading here that Doug Hill and Jeff Weingrade, authors of Saturday Night, A Backstage History, wrote that Belushi found Chevy Chase's success and ego especially hard.
A little jealousy, maybe. Chevy was first to leave. He was the first to get the movie offers.
He left after one season.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Belushi has had a self-image problem, and that translates then into the future onto Chris Farley. He didn't like the fact that he was overweight, and so he resented Chevy Chase in that way. Because he knew that he was more talented than Chevy Chase.
But Chevy had the Hollywood looks.
Chevy had the Hollywood looks. So that's where the resentment comes. That's why Belushi hated him.
And come on, his name
And
is
Chevy-
Chevy Chase. It rolls off your tongue.
And Chevy had the ego to go with it.
Well, I also think that Belushi is more self-destructive as we,
Exactly.
short life. I mean, everybody's kind of a little self-destructive here. I mean, Aykroyd and Chase and all of them.
Comedians are.
We know they did drugs. However, Belushi took it to the next level.
Right.
And I think this is what this movie tries to show, is that Belushi is probably a little messed up because of the drugs, even at this point of his career. And I think he steals the drugs off of Garrett. And
it is.
Medical grade.
This is medical grade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no secret. and Saturday Night Live, drugs flowed very freely. If you listen to anybody who was there in the 90s too, drugs flowed freely. I mean,
But it's how you handled the drugs that was the key here. And that's what I'm saying. Jane Curtin didn't care for Belushi.
Belushi had an appetite that was above and beyond anything anybody had ever seen. Yeah, it affected him. I mean, some of the later episodes, like when you get to around 78, 79, you can tell it's affected him.
And I also think that Belushi didn't really care to do sketch comedy. I think he thought he was better than sketch comedy, especially based on what we see in this movie, which is, this is one person's take,
This is a snapshot. At this point in time, though, he wasn't above it. It's not until he got into Hollywood that's where things really took.
So doing Animal House with Landis.
Right.
Where they couldn't keep him on the set.
Right. But this movie plays off.
Landis saying that they had people keeping drugs away from Belushi on the set of Animal House is one of the biggest fucking jokes in history.
You think they were feeding him?
It's known that he was having them flown in from New York.
Well, he was coming back and forth.
Blues Brothers movie had a budget for it.
Yes.
Yeah, they had a budget and a line item. Yeah.
Yes. Literally a line
item. Yeah.
But this movie, though, plays with the fact that Belushi is bigger than this. They have to tell him that he is Marlon Brando of comedy, I guess.
Well, the bee sketch. Yeah, the bees.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to do the bees sketch.
And see, and everywhere...
Doesn't want to shave.
Okay, so I read back when it was the 25th anniversary, I read the 25th anniversary book, and in nowhere in there did Lorne say that he had trouble getting him to do a sketch or to do what was written for him at this time. Then, as it went further and further and further, his drug use got so bad. That's when they called it quits after 79 and they had their run, one of the major reasons was because of Belushi's drug use. That's one of the things that made them all split. Because they couldn't handle it anymore.
And that's probably why this movie does what it does. This movie likes to play like foreshadowing.
Right. Well, in the background, when they're in the writer's room, there is a cereal box that was one of the Phil Hartman's sketches.
Colon
Blow. Yeah, there's a Colon Blow box back there.
They should have had the donuts box back there.
Little chocolate donuts.
Right. Little chocolate donuts. And he's sitting
Belushi
there
in his little cigarette. Yeah, it's great.
So I think that's what the movie does here. I think it's taking their characters and showing you what they
become.
Not are exactly at that time, but what they probably will become. Maybe Chases is not as arrogant at the first episode, but as the season goes along, maybe he becomes more arrogant.
Well, I'm sure he does.
According to everybody, he played nice for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But then when he got the tap on the shoulder saying you could be the next Carson, you're going to be... Because out of this first season, he was above everybody else. Because everybody started saying, well, I'm Chevy Chase and you're not.
Right. Weekend Update put him on the map.
Live from New York, it's Saturday
night.
He did the fall.
He was the only one to say it.
Yeah.
And he was.
He was the first one to do Weekend Update. I mean, there was a lot of things going for Chevy Chase that first season.
And Lorne was supposed to do Weekend Update.
Right, as we see that.
As we see in the movie here.
And this catapulted Chase to, movie stardom. He had a very strong 10-year career after this.
Yeah, he was handsome. He was funny. Not the easiest to get along with, but you could get along with him.
A lot of actors have egos. You got a stroke.
As much as I take a dump on Chevy Chase here.
Whatever you're into, Ted. Whatever you're into.
You do see him having fun with the cast. And that is, by all accounts, true. Like, he was part of that. Years later, he regretted the fact that he left so soon.
Yeah, he just reiterated it just a month or so ago on an interview. He said one of his biggest regrets was leaving Saturday Night Live when he did.
The next season, if you have Chevy Chase and then you add Bill Murray to that cast, now it's a superstar. I mean, it's overloaded with talent. That's an embarrassment of riches. From top to bottom, it's amazing. He got tapped as the star.
I think the actor who plays Chevy Chase here does a really good job as well.
I love him. I think he does a great Chevy Chase.
I've liked him in almost everything that he's done as an actor. The first place I saw him was in the TV show Gotham. He plays Edward Nygma, the Riddler, which he did an amazing job in that.
Most of these people get their mannerisms down like really well.
Yeah.
John Belushi's the actor who plays John Belushi, not as strong as others.
Yeah, it's not the best Belushi impersonation.
Boy, well, compared to what other Belushi impersonations out there, I think it's one of the best. But it's not like what the other actors are doing with their take on the character. J.K. Simmons, when he does
Milton Berle,
I mean, you don't see J.K. Simmons in you see Milton Berle. That smile of his that irks me because that Milton Berle. I'm sorry, I know he's Mr. TV, but I think he's one of the most overrated.
Many people would agree. Remember, have you ever seen the season when Milton Berle hosted SNL?
Oh yes,
it's a train wreck.
Well, was it the fourth? Yeah. The fourth season?
It was. I think it was 81 or 82, maybe. But it was a train wreck.
No, he did it before then. He did it in the original.
Was it 79?
Yeah, I think it was the fourth season.
Was it?
So yeah, it would have been 79.
79. Train wreck.
Again, this movie plays it off that he is above everybody else. And from what it sounds like on that episode, he treated everybody like they were below him. So
they should be kissing his ass or other things.
No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Family friendly. So
the between him and Chase, though.
I love that banter between those two. That is great.
Oh, yeah. I hope that happened. I hope that happened.
Oh, I probably didn't. There's no recollection that Milton Berle was even there that night.
It would have made sense that he would have been at the NBC Tower because they were still
filming one of his outdated shows,
variety shows.
Yeah.
I mean, the Uncle Milty Hour.
He's doing that little dance with the showgirls and everything.
That was actually kind of a cool little thing.
It's perfect. I mean, it's J.K. Simmons does an amazing job. So we talked about the Muppets being on here.
Jim Henson.
So they played Jim Henson to be a little bit of a wuss here.
Little bit of a wuss. You think so?
I don't think he was a wuss in real life.
I don't know.
His ego got big. Okay, so we're right before he got an ego.
Clearly.
So this is because this is right around the time he got the children's, because we talk about how things are going to be for the character. They do make fun of the children's playhouse, the children's
PBS.
PBS.
Yeah.
This is a year before the Muppet Show, by the way.
Yes, it's a year before the Muppet Show, and it's the year before 2 years before Sesame Street starts.
Sesame started in 1970.
Did it start in 70? Shit. So then he has no business being on Saturday Night Live. It doesn't fit, and Michael O'Donoghue is great. So autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah.
So Jim, autoerotic asphyxiation. Who would have known?
Yeah.
All you can think is that maybe Michael's thought that, he was playing to the children that were in the West Coast, because this would be playing at 8:30 instead of 11:30 on the East Coast. I don't know what the purpose of it was.
Throwing shit against the wall to see if it would stick. He learned a lot from Saturday Night Live, because if you look at the script for how the Muppet Show aired, it had a host,
yes,
a musical guest, and it was pretty much live.
What seemed like, and then no point.
They're of course they're Muppets. They're not live.
Hey, the Muppets are alive. So Gilda Radner, of course, was on the Muppet Show that first
Right.
season that they did. So not
Yeah.
everybody disliked the Muppets from SNL.
Well,
And that's-
the women weren't messing with them. Clearly, it was Aykroyd and Shazam, and the
Well, yeah.
producers who were messing with the Muppets.
Yeah.
It was mostly the
I mean,
writers. It was
And
mostly the
O'Donoghue.
writers.
It was
O'Donoghue,
O'Donoghue is who
yes.
it was. So, autoerotic asphyxiation, huh, Jim? I would have known.
It was probably
It's
Donahue that probably strung up Big Bird.
For sure.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sure it was. I mean,
Clearly.
I don't write for
And
Fuzz
left a
because-
note. Yeah.
Yeah.
And left a note. Yes. Because Lauren's like, I'm sure that didn't happen, Jim. They left a note. Oh,
Left a note.
okay. Yeah.
It's
That
so
doesn't sound
hilarious.
like them.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It sounds exactly like
Yeah.
them. I mean, look at who you got there. You've got Al Franken. You've got Michael O'Donoghue.
Of my least favorite characters was Lorne Michaels' character.
And he's
I
the main
like
character.
Lauren Michaels.
I
I
wasn't.
thought it's not a great impersonation of him.
No.
I mean, Mike Myers.
Yeah,
is
the
Dr.
SNL
Evil.
cast makes great impressions of Lorne Michaels.
Mike Myers is as Dr. Evil,
Evil.
and Austin Powers is
Is
the
Lorne
best
Michaels?
Lorne
Yes, yes.
Every time you see Jim Henson come onto the screen,
You know something's
know
going wrong.
something funny is gonna happen. It makes me laugh every single time. Nicholas Braun, who plays Jim Henson, he gets the whole how he talks and everything. I mean,
Mhm.
he sounds like Kermit the Frog, and
Yeah.
that's who Jim Henson was. He was Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. I just don't know if Jim
And we
Henson
have
would have
Ken's-
played off as being. He comes off being more like Mr. Rogers than he comes off being Jim Henson, in my opinion.
Stab
Jim
in the
Hen-
eye.
He became an ego after the Muppet Show and everything.
Well,
That's what.
maybe so,
I mean,
but he
did
was a visionary
Star
too.
Wars, and I mean,
Think of all the coke he was doing.
Jim Henson, actually, he's pretty
I don't know if he
straight-laced.
did.
Yeah, he's
Wasn't.
pretty straight-laced.
I know he's
So
But it
deceased
would
I mean,
now.
did Did you
would
see
be
lost
Miss
interesting.
Piggy's nose though? I think Miss Piggy might have been doing some coke back then. So
Didn't one of the writers dip her face into the Coke?
Did they? I don't know.
I don't
missed
remember
that.
that part.
Don't we see it?
It's in your
surprise
warped
me.
mind, Ted.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, what did O'Donoghue say? I don't write for Fuzz.
Right, something like that.
You have the ladies of SNL, and you have Ella Hunt, who played
Chevy's
Gilda.
Girls.
Chevy's Girls.
Chevy's
Good.
Girls.
God.
So I thought out of the three, I thought Ella's portrayal of Gilda was the best out of the three. I don't know
Most
how you say her
accurate.
name, Kim Matula, with her Jane Curtin. I'm sorry, but she made Jane Curtin really hot. I didn't get any Jane Curtin vibes off of her.
I had to remind myself that she was Jane Curtin.
Right, exactly. When her and Garrett Morris are talking
Yes.
and she's doing that bit in front of him, man, that was good. That was really,
Yeah.
really,
No,
really
yeah,
good
it's
seeing
really
that.
good. The lady who plays Lorne Michaels' wife too, she's really good too. I think she does a really good job.
Yeah. I didn't know much about her going into this.
She was another writer.
And that's the thing. Sometimes female writers, especially in the 70s, 80s, they get pushed down
On
and you don't-
Saturday Night Live in general.
just in general, in any type of a writer's room, right? So I feel like someone like Tina Fey comes around and she kind of changed all that. She
She was a game changer.
She was the one that said, "Hey, and look at all the trailblazers before me." I think Tina Fey kind of really did that, and because she was a writer that when she had some skits,
And
but in general she was, weekend
I
news.
believe she was the first female head writer too.
Yes, she definitely was the first female writer. I'm not sure how I feel about the Lorraine Newman character. I feel like,
She's
Like
like
it's-
Lorraine Newman.
like barely there.
Hmm
Kinda
She's the
treated-
one. If you ask people to name the original cast, they will tell you Bill Murray was in the original cast, and they'll forget Lorraine Newman.
Well, I remember watching an interview with the whole cast, and the guy who was doing the interview didn't remember Lorraine's name out of all the. They got to her
And
last,
And that's too bad because she was funny.
yeah. I mean, she wasn't bad. I don't think she was Jane Curtin or Gilda Radner by any stretch of the means.
Okay, so let's be perfectly honest.
No, it's
When
not.
you
Lie to us, Ted. We like it.
so when you have Gilda Radner's on a completely another level, she's probably one of the best female comedians ever. And
On what planet, Ted?
every planet.
Okay.
It's
All
She's
right.
not my top 3,
I'm-
but she's in the top 10.
she's amazing.
Gilda Radner.
I'll put her
Okay.
in the
She's
top 10,
hilarious.
I'm
Name
gonna
one
put-
thing that she did on Saturday Night Live that wasn't hilarious.
I thought everything she did was pretty good on
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, but
And
I'm.
but she
But
did-
she's
you're
not-
talking
She did
stand-up
Lamb-
comedians?
Ball, she's not Madeline Kahn. She's not in that.
She's not Kate McKinnon.
No, I don't think she's Kate McKinnon either.
Yeah, she's dead. I get it. All right.
No,
she
she's
died
not.
early.
I'll say she's not Kate. Kate McKinnon is absolutely hilarious.
You're saying she's one of the funniest comedians of all women.
Yeah,
I'll put her in the top 10. I won't put her in the top 5, but I'll
I
put her
don't
in the
know if
top
I'd
10.
put her in the top 50.
Wow.
I like her, but I don't think she's.
I liked her, especially when she was playing characters like the little kid in the bedroom. You know,
that
where
was
she's
okay.
scared of monsters.
That was annoying.
I liked that.
I
think
liked
it was fun.
Emily Latella,
Rosanna, Anna, Dana.
Rosanna
Yes.
Dana. Yes,
Yeah,
but
she was funny in
she
movies.
was funny, but I think Jane Curtin far
I agree.
funnier.
I think Jane
Interesting.
Far
Curtin
funnier.
was the best out
Interesting.
of the 3. I think Jane
No.
Curtin was more versatile. She is more like she's a female Phil Hartman.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I always found Gilda funnier,
Plus, Jane was an ignorant slut.
That's right. That's right.
which we found out that
She really
Last
was.
night on the-
yes.
last night on the 50th anniversary
On the
special
50th.
that Bill Murray was the first one to call her an ignorant slut.
But it was backstage.
But it was
then
backstage.
And
afterwards,
then
I
we
was-
meant it. Yes, it was.
They
Danny
really
was
meant it. Yeah, but no, I feel like the ladies take a back seat in this movie a little bit. Gilda
up until they do the construction worker scene,
oh yeah, that is a good scene.
which is goddamn hilarious.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorites from the original cast.
Really?
Is that is so hilarious
Well,
because you can tell Dan Aykroyd is so uncomfortable being in that role.
Which is funny because he really in the movie. They really played up the Fred Garvin male prostitute.
Of course,
Like
'cause
every woman he was talking to, he's playing that line.
and of course that doesn't get on until 1979.
Right, exactly. But they really were playing it up. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, okay.
That had to be something he was doing in Second City in
I'm
Montreal.
sure it was.
Dylan O'Brien does a great Dan Aykroyd, by the way.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does
Wonderfully done.
really good.
It reminded me how good Dan Aykroyd was,
Yeah.
Mhm.
in the 70s.
Let's call it what it is. These 5 people are absolute geniuses.
The whole ensemble of the cast and the writers is genius.
It's
How they
I
made
mean-
it work and how it lasted 50
Yeah.
years.
kudos to Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
I mean, Lorne Michaels put these guys together in a room because we saw what happened after 79 once they called it quits. From 80 to 85, those are considered the dark years of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Nobody
He had to fire,
quotes anything from those years.
except if it's Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, except Eddie Murphy.
Literally,
I
that's
mean,
it.
Some,
I mean, you had to fire
some
the whole
delusional-
cast but John Lovitz and start over again.
Yeah, or Dennis Miller and Nora Dunn. In 85, they were part of the season.
They just did a total rehaul.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had Madonna going on the next season and saying that the previous season was nothing more than a dream.
A bad dream. I like the scene here where the assistant Neil he's given a joint by Paul Schaefer
By
and has
Paul
the panic
Schaefer.
attack. And I like it how Dan Aykroyd is talking him down. And he's telling him like what kind of joint that he might have smoked.
It had to be laced with cocaine.
It was like the Walter Cronkite, Jimmy Carter
Yeah.
bit where he's
Yeah.
doing the live, talking the guy down. Took some orange
Yeah.
sunshine.
Do
Do you have any Allman Brothers? Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be laced with cocaine.
Of course.
And that's what this movie
Clearly.
does. Is it takes all these skits and all these bits and it inserts them into like a real life scenario, and
Mhm.
it plays out that way. It does bother me a little bit because I'm like, okay, you're going to use that here and you're going to use that there. I wouldn't mind it once in a while, but it seemed like it's an antidote throughout the movie. Hey, let's use this scene of the movie to use a bit from the sketches to throw it in, so we don't have to do the sketches
Sometimes,
themselves.
yeah.
we could throw them in as a line. And sometimes it works, and sometimes I'm just like, okay, you don't have to go there again.
Well, yeah, it's like, did Andy Kaufman doing the Mighty Mouse thing, did that make sure that people got up and started to put the bricks down and everything like that, and that brought everybody together? Probably not. But do I find that sketch hilarious? Yeah, it makes me laugh every time. But here again, and like Eric mentioned, it's not for everybody. But
It's an overrated sketch, in my opinion. I'm kind of surprised that it's as popular as it is.
It's original. It's
It is
original. It's funny
It's
the first
avant-garde.
time you see it. It's very avant-garde. It's not the worst thing he's done.
It's very
Right.
avant-garde. No,
I
it's
like
not
the part where he thinks it's his turn to
Yes, and people like that.
Sing.
That's
Right.
hilarious.
and then he's like, oh yeah, that's not my
Right.
part yet.
And then later he takes a time out and he takes a drink of water and then he gets back. To me, it's funny.
I think it's
But-
more brilliant than funny. I think it's more like you guys say, it's avant-garde. It's
genius.
genius. But I with Eric the first time around, I think it's interesting. But after that, I feel like
Okay.
I can't go back to it again.
Well, by today's standards, it's like it's
Okay.
it's
It's so tame, but
it's so tame. But in '75, it's not
interesting.
over the top revolutionary, but it's avant-garde. Yeah, it's you don't
expect it.
This movie does make me feel bad for Ebersol, though, because Ebersol is trying to do everything he can to help this movie, this TV show, get off the ground.
He's made hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't feel bad.
No,
for him.
I understand, but at this particular time, he's
also good friends with Vince McMahon.
But he's like trying to get that Polaroid into the skits, which is a smart idea.
Which is interesting because the Polaroid ends up being a big thing as far as the entrance, the credits entering into Saturday Night Live, because those are all Polaroids. Because you have at the end, and that's kind of the part that I kind of got a little misty, was when Gilda wants everybody to take a picture.
Right,
because we
Polaroid camera.
We know what that picture is. I've seen that picture a million times. And it's perfect.
Before we get to the sticking the landing, one last performer I want to talk about, the Billy Crystal.
Poor Billy. Yeah,
he's perfect.
What's his name? Nicholas Podney. I almost thought it was a young Billy Crystal. I really believe that was Billy Crystal. His mannerisms,
they did some CGI on him.
The way he just looked, but his
he's perfect.
Deadpan for Billy Crystal. I mean, his delivery was perfect. This is maybe one of my favorite parts in the whole movie, is just Billy Crystal trying to figure out a way to get on the air, and talking about, hey, maybe knock it down to 4 minutes, and looking at the board, but it plays off more real. That for me played almost more real than anything else in the whole movie did.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, Billy does get on Saturday Night Live, but it's in the dark years.
Well, the skit gets on. I mean,
he was part of the cast?
Yeah, he becomes part of the cast, but he actually does this skit with the original cast a few years later.
Yeah.
So he does get on there, but I love the struggle of a comic trying to get his stuff on the air.
Yeah,
I think
and Annie, it's Annie Beats, right?
Yeah,
that he's talking with. She's funny too.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I think it's my favorite part in the whole movie because it feels the most real out of everything that I see here in this.
Ken, you were saying that like a sketch will pop up every now and then. I do like when they're Al Franken and I can't remember the other writer, but they're coming up with one of Dan Aykroyd's sketches where he plays the
Julia
Childs. And they squirt him with blood, and he's just like, that was very powerful.
I love it how the guy who plays Dan Aykroyd, pretends he's Julia Childs. That was cracking me up.
That's one of the great sketches too.
And then Lawrence is walking around with his blood on his shirt.
Doesn't
even faze him. He's in the bar. He's everywhere. No one's asking, "Oh my God, what happened? You get a murder?"
Well, that's in the final section, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm jumping the gun.
Let's stick the landing.
All right. We're going to talk sticking the landing here. Feeling hopeless, Michael heads to a local bar where he meets comedy writer Alan Zwiebel and hires him on the spot to become a writer on the show. He, along with Gilda Radner, later find Belushi ice skating and convince him to return to the show and sign his contract. Michaels is further motivated to continue with the show after having a brief chat with Henson. Tebbit arrives demanding that the show be shut down unless Michaels shows him exactly what it entails. Andy Kaufman performs his Mighty Mouse skit, which makes everyone laugh. Michaels then asks Chase to take over Weekend Update, which he had planned to host himself. Chase does an impromptu version of Weekend Update using Vible's newly written material, which is successful. The audience arrives and fills the venue as cast and crew finish all the sets and get into place. Tebbit allows the live show to proceed to air. Michael O'Donoghue and Belushi perform the Wolverine sketch, which is well received by the audience. Chase enters the scene and announces, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night!" And it ends. Good way to end the movie, too.
So right off the bat, you first talked about that Michaels heads to a local bar, and of course he's got the blood still on him.
Right.
And he meets the writer. Was it Alan
Zweibel?
Zweibel. This actually happened, but it happened a week earlier.
Yeah.
So he did hire a writer in a bar, but not an hour before.
How amazing. Alan Zweibel is another one of those writers on Saturday Night Live that is a genius and just is so funny and wrote some of the funniest stuff ever on Saturday Night Live. And it's one of those weird happenstance meetings, I guess, that could only happen in New York City, right? Fate intercedes. But no, it's cool. And
there's no way you're going to spend all this money, NBC money, to get all these people together to produce a live show and not go on with it.
Yeah, and then you took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
It was going to go on.
Right.
Unless something electrically went wrong, they wouldn't have switched over to Johnny Carson.
Or Belushi whips it out on stage live or something.
Well, there were a lot of things that were going wrong. I mean, if we believe that the lighting director was fired.
It makes sense. It would make sense that some stuff like that would happen, but I would have thought that would have happened in the pre-show, the dress rehearsal.
And that's what I would think that Tebbit would probably have said this show needs to go forward, is he's seen the dress rehearsal and saw some of the acts and said, you know what, we have enough here to move forward. Was there a chance that they would be shut down and replaced? Yeah, of course there would be.
Mm-hmm. So am I to say that NBC didn't prep the show with like commercials, TV guide?
No.
Anything?
Everything that I've ever read and said that no, they were giving the ads away for free.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
just like the tickets.
It's 11:30 at night. You're not going to have much interest.
But I understand. Okay, so they gave the sponsorship away for free, the TV, the spots. But I mean, did they show any commercials like in between their, their network shows? Coming up at 11:30.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
So
did NBC do cross promotion? Like, tune in to blah 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 for I don't know.
Yeah, like you see today commercials. You see promos for shows that are on later in the day, or
that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't do that and then not have the show go on.
I've never seen an uncut version of the original episode to tell you if the commercials had cross promotion from NBC.
I would think it would be any type of commercials that kind of aired at that particular time of night.
Probably.
So. No. I'm not talking about the commercials that aired during the show, before the show.
I don't think there was
saying tune in to Saturday Night Live.
Yes, you're watching your sitcoms at 7 or 8 p.m.
I don't think so.
Coming up.
Yeah. I've always been under the impression by everything that I've read that they didn't give a shit whether it tanked or not. They weren't interested in it. I mean, they were only doing it because they had really no other option. Yeah, leverage.
Yeah.
And plus, Dick Ebersol was up and coming at the time, and he was really behind it. And he had the ear of people at NBC, and he was successful with NBC Sports.
There's two things I have a problem with this movie. One is the Johnny Carson thing with Michaels. I have a problem with that.
I believe that happened.
I don't believe that happened.
I don't believe it happened.
I don't believe it happened. Nope.
You really think that Johnny Carson would do that just out of a whim?
Well, yeah. Johnny Carson was an asshole.
No, Johnny Carson was not an asshole.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm dead serious.
If you were a comedian and you went on the Tonight Show and he didn't laugh, you were done.
Yeah.
Well,
In
yeah.
Or you didn't
Los
get the
Angeles.
okay. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the motion to come over
Sure.
and
yeah.
sit. Yeah, you were done.
Yeah,
you
I
were
know that.
done as a comedian.
Doesn't mean
I
he's
know
an
that.
asshole.
Yeah, and that's a little extreme.
Are you
That's a little
kidding?
extreme.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
That's a
Okay,
step
so
of
we
approval.
so we took a shit on Milton Berle, saying that he was a complete dick, which honestly,
Oh,
ironically enough,
yes.
he was a complete dick.
That's all he
By
was.
all accounts, he staked out his claim on NBC. You don't think that Johnny Carson wasn't staked out his claim on NBC?
I don't think Johnny Carson would have made a phone call like that to Lorne Michaels.
He probably would have thought it was below him.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he would have belittled Lorne Michaels on the call.
If he would have written a letter to them, I wouldn't surprise me in the least that saying, "You hope you die." Yeah,
I agree.
Wouldn't
I
surprise me
think
in the
Johnny
least.
Carson did not have any fear of
No, he was
NBC.
larger than life.
He was larger than life.
Then he probably did the same thing to David Letterman and
He
Jay
did.
Leno. He didn't do it to David. Dave Letterman loves Johnny Carson. He puts him on a pedestal like he's a god.
Johnny.
He does.
I love
Because Johnny Carson wanted him to be his replacement.
Right, and so Johnny took a shit on Jay Leno.
Well, Johnny Carson believes in loyalty. He feels that
Jay
Letterman
stabbed
paid
him
his
in the
dues.
back.
Well, think of Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers almost had the Tonight Show. She started her own show on Fox, and Johnny Carson never spoke to her again.
Never spoke to her again.
Never said a word.
So don't give me
Betrayal.
this thing that Johnny wasn't a dick.
We're not saying that he doesn't have an ego, but I don't think he's going to call a nobody
and say,
"No,
fuck you, you're a nobody. I hope you fail."
Did that happen that night of the first episode?
I don't think it happened.
I doubt Johnny Carson even knew that Saturday Night was even going to appear.
I don't think Johnny Carson
by all accounts,
cares.
he resented the fact that they were popular.
Maybe,
possibly.
But
because there for a period of time, from like 76 to 78, Saturday Night Live was more popular than The Tonight Show.
Depends on your audience. The younger people, not the old fogies. You cannot.
But they all wanted that younger audience.
Well, think about it. Saturday was the kids didn't have school. The college kids wanted to watch it as well. Whereas during the week,
think about that too. For your younger kids, I say like junior high, high school, that's 11:30 to 1 p.m. Eastern. That's serious. Yeah, that's late.
Now
that's Sunday morning live.
Now the second problem I have with this movie is the John Belushi skating.
No.
Stand this baloney. I'm sorry. I know they're trying to fit in that skit where he does a triple axel. I don't know if that's even a first season skit.
It's not. I don't think it's the first. It's definitely not first episode.
So my problem is that they linked this with the contract signing.
Yeah,
and
I don't like
there
that necessarily either.
I'm not a fan of this part at all.
Little bit of a liberty taken there. I think we can all agree.
A little bit of a liberty.
I think it's way too heavy-handed.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
It's not needed.
I like it.
I would rather that we didn't know that he was going to walk through that door to do the Wolverine sketch. I mean, even though that's probably not true either, that's
just
a little bit
show
more...
him, show behind stage, behind the door, like just doing like a whole shitload of blow, and then going through and doing it. That's the realistic. That's what I want to see.
He wants more blow,
or him signing the contract like right behind the door.
Yeah, the ice skating ring.
Since we're taking liberties, let's have a little bit of fun liberty with it. Yeah, I would agree, Ken. That it didn't upset me, but I'm like, it was like one of these things is not like the other. Why is this here? It's very out of place for this.
Exactly, that's
what I felt. Very out of place.
But
and then it's like 15 minutes
not
before
out of place.
Game time.
Yeah, it's
game
what
time.
Isn't out of place is though that Gilda, I guess, was the John Belushi Wrangler.
That's fine.
She was, yeah. So that's not necessarily out of place.
But I don't think she's going to be there 15 minutes before we go on air. She's
not.
more professional.
And of course, John Belushi wasn't out in front of Rockefeller Center ice skating before he went on. I mean, he's in his B costume.
Yeah.
He's not in the costume for the first
skit.
Skit.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. Of course, it's
liberties are taken.
Liberties are taken.
Yes.
But I like seeing anytime you can see Belushi in the B costume skating. It's funny to me.
Did he really hate that costume? Did he hate that skit?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Because I didn't think it was the funniest thing.
It's not. It's silly. It's goofy. It's kind of dumb.
Yeah. It's very iconic.
It's hugely iconic. It's
the Mexican TV shows have that one guy who plays the bee.
You're right. You've mentioned the shark. We do see that in the very beginning of the movie.
Land shark?
We get to see the shark go through.
Land shark. Candygram.
Well, that's
flowers.
That's what Chevy Chase does when he's knocking down the door to
Chevy Chase. Yeah.
He's like
Candygram.
Flowers. You're that shark. Not really a shark, man. More of a dolphin.
One of my favorite skits.
Now that's obviously coming off of Jaws from '75. That's playing off of it. It's beautiful.
Yes. Right.
Land shark.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's great.
Well,
it's so
Lorne
stupid.
Michaels
It's
was
funny.
Friends with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's funny. That's what's great about it. It's like,
yeah.
Now that's Lorraine Newman's height there. I think that's her her Mount Everest is the girl eaten by the land shark.
Yeah, I think everything is kind of jammed a lot at the end here to make it seem like everything happened at the last minute. Yeah. I think there's just too many things. I think you let the ice skating thing go, then that's more believable about the weekend update that Lorne Michaels gives up the weekend update at the last minute to Chevy Chase, which I know that didn't happen. That's got to be, he had to give that up at least a week in advance, in my opinion.
I don't know.
Here's the thing. This is why I like the end, is because if you listen to Sandler and Chris Rock and Dana Carvey and Mike Myers and all of these people talk about what life is like leading up to the first cue, it's complete and utter chaos. And I think that they capture that really, really well.
I would like to believe that one or two of these things really happened. And it's hard for me to believe any of it happened when there's just so many crazy ideas being thrown at you at the end of the...
I'm going to feed your fingertips to the Wolverines.
And you might be doing it better than the actor did in this movie, because I didn't particularly care for that. I didn't feel like I was in a John Belushi moment at the end there.
And it's funny because the reason he does that accent so perfectly is that was his parents were from Slovakia.
From Chicago.
Yeah.
Native Chicagoans. That's how Chicagoans sound.
Yeah.
You know? Yes.
He was hanging out with Andy Kaufman before.
Yeah.
The guy who plays it on the movie. Yeah. It's a little too Andy Kaufman-ish.
Yeah.
It's not John Belushi-ish.
And that's the most disappointing. I mean, I think overall he does a good job with the John Belushi, but earlier when he does the bit where he's talking about the different seasons coming out of one season into another, I didn't feel Belushi. Yeah. I didn't feel him channeling Belushi like I would like him to.
I agree.
The one thing we did not touch, which I think is kind of key to the movie, is O'Donoghue and the cast and everyone, Michaels, having to deal with the NBC censor.
That's fine.
Numerous times throughout the movie, explaining and trying to quote unquote explain certain things as she's going through the script, which I think is
Satan.
What is a clown diver?
Yeah, very funny.
I'm Satan. Everybody's Satan.
Yes.
Yeah. I the best part of that, because you can tell that she's holier than thou.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's like, my pen.
See this bread pen?
Keeps America safe.
Right.
And then O'Donoghue, he just gives her the Bible.
Yeah.
And then we'll crucify him on stage.
You're right.
Well, basically, if you gave her the Bible...
That is so fucking hilarious.
She would cross out so many things that are in the Bible and won't let it go to air. So, yeah,
exactly.
I think it's time for us to do our final reviews.
Let's do it. Let's hear Ken first. I'm curious what Ken says about this movie.
This cast is great. This cast makes this thing all work. I mean, whoever came up with these particular actors to play these particular parts was amazing. I just was very impressed with the Billy Crystal, Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Milton Berle. All those characters just jump out on the screen and feel like the actual actor, the actual character. And there's some fun moments here. And I think Reitman does a good job of pacing this film throughout the movie for the most part. Like I said, I could have gotten rid of the ice skating ring thing at the end there. He does a good job of setting up the stakes and overcoming those stakes. Is it accurate? Probably it's probably 60-40, 50-50, somewhere in that particular range. Does it bother me a little bit? Of course it does. I'm the guy that believes in being accurate when you tell a biop movie. But the actors are the reason that I will go back to this movie. It's not quite 4 hooks, but so I'm going to give it a 3.75 hook. It is something that I feel like if I watch it again, it might grow on me a little bit more, so it could reach that 4.
You'll get a lot of things that you missed in the first time watching it.
I watched it twice.
I agree with that. I agree. I only watched this movie one time, just for time constraints, unfortunately. So this is a movie. It's interesting. You got to look at it from 2 point of views. You got to look at it from either a biop point of view, as Ken said, or is this a movie that stands alone on its own? So if you're looking at it from like an SNL fan, a biop point of view, the movie has a lot of liberties they're taking. You have to take a lot of things with a grain of salt. And you're probably going to look at this movie going, well, that couldn't have happened, and that couldn't have happened, and why did that happen, and this? And you might think a lot less about it. I think that's why a lot of the critics have panned the movie, why a lot of it did not get a lot of movie play. People wanted this to be more of an actual true-to-life biop of the actual event, which you're never going to get. You talk to every cast member, you're going to get something different. I look at this movie from the other point of view. I look at this movie as an individual, it stands on its own. What is Saturday Night Live? I've never heard of SNL. This is a new concept to me. Let's watch the movie and see how the movie is. I think the movie stands very well on itself as a bunch of comedians trying to get a show together on a network. Look at it that way. Look at the actual characters, and without a backstory of the characters, you're looking at them for the first time. We all have the characters we like, right? Same in this one too. Reitman, I think, did a really good job putting this together. It flows well. It's quick. It probably could actually went a little bit longer and still flown within that hour and a half time frame before the airing of the show. There's a few things in it that are kind of stupid, kind of loopy, but fine, whatever. It is what it is. Movie's not a 4. It's not a 3. But you know what? I am going to watch it again because, like you said, Ted, I'll bet you there's stuff I missed. And I'm going to really sit down. I'm really going to focus on this thing. And I'm sure I'm going to like it more. But for now, I'm going to give it a solid 3.5 hooks. All right. Take us home, Ted. What do you got?
I never went into this movie thinking that this is what happened the first night of the show.
This isn't like SNL gospel, right?
Yeah. This is not. I mean, because I got that. I mean, as close to what you're going to get that when I read the Saturday Night Live book. So Saturday Night Live this is a cultural touch point for me that's shaped my view of comedy. It shaped my view of a lot of things. And to see it on screen and to see some of these people brought to life in this way, I enjoyed it tremendously. Like Ken said, a lot of these people are just completely dead on. I mean, no, I don't really care for how my hero, John Belushi, is portrayed. John Belushi was also a flawed human being, as most comedians are. There's like at least 5 or 6 times I laugh out loud, and it makes me laugh. And most of it is because Michael O'Donoghue's sarcastic, dark humor. It just does. I enjoy this movie. I think Jason Reitman really does an amazing job here directing this movie because, like I said before, he he brings what everybody that you've heard give interviews talk about, the chaos that leads up to that moment where the red light goes on at Studio 8H, and he brings that to life. Everybody hits their marks really well, I think, here. For me, it's a surprising 4. I was surprised the first time I watched it that I enjoyed it, that I liked it. And the 2 times that I've watched it leading up to for the podcast, I've liked it even more. Yeah, I'm not going to lie and say that part of why I love the movie is because I adore Saturday Night Live.
Well, of course, we all do. That's a little bit of a bias on our part, but they could have easily made a movie that just completely sucked.
This could have fallen on its face.
Yeah.
So many times.
This could have been a real hatchet job to the whole cast, to Lorne Michaels, to the whole show itself.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, would Lorne Michaels have signed off on it had it been a complete hatchet job?
Probably not. All right, Ken, what's our next movie we're doing?
Well, it's one that you picked, Eric. It's the 50th anniversary of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Cuckoo, cuckoo. Yeah.
I love
Ted story, yes.
Yeah, that's
time to get your lobotomy, Ted. So,
got to put the bottle in front of me.
All right.
I'd rather have a frontal lobotomy.
Well, looking forward to that one. A little Jack Nicholson, some Nurse Ratched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
Named one of the greatest villains in movie history.
Yes. Such a subtle villain, too, but so well done.
I hate her so much.
I know, but you love her so much. Great. All right, so we're going to do 1975's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to this podcast. And I finally, from the moment we started this podcast, do you gentlemen remember my closing line? I did it for like the first season. You should. It kind of relates to what we just did. Good night, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
I'm going to live in a van down by the river. See you at the movies.
Wasn't that special? See you next time on Hooked on Movies.